From AM 1430 WBEV, streaming online at dailydodge.com. It is time now for today's community comment. Here's your host, Craig Warmbold.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Welcome to Community Comment. Our guest on Community Comment today is Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Always a pleasure.
The phone lines are open at 920-885-4446 if you've got a question today for the sheriff, and I'd be more than happy to address any questions or comments that you may have during the course of the program today. Well, let's kind of get started, with some seasonal things. We've got Halloween right around the corner. The kids are going to be out trick-or-treating here pretty soon. Maybe we should start out there and with a little bit of advice for the motorists and the parents that are out there.
Sure. Halloween is always a very fun time for a lot of people, young and old. I've seen some people in some pretty cool costumes. In fact, maybe even the guy to my left here, in some pretty cool costumes in the past. And so people like to have fun, and we need to be safe when we're doing it. The thing that always scares me the most about Halloween is seeing a bunch of kids running around out, going and looking for candy. A couple of reasons that scares me. First of all, traffic and kids running around doesn't mix. And so we want to make sure that kids are being careful out there. Parents are with their kids. Make sure that they're dressed in highly visible clothing if possible. I know that doesn't always fit in with what you've got, what you're wearing, but also make sure that they're not darting out in front of traffic. Great time to teach your kids, come to the corner of that street, look both ways before crossing, and don't dart out into traffic. It would not end well if one of those cars ended up hitting one of our kids. And so that's always one of my biggest concerns. And then the other concern is what is in the candy that our kids are getting when they're trick-or-treating. Parents, please inspect all the candy before letting your kids starting to eat it. Anything that's already open, excuse me, anything that's already open, don't allow them to eat. And people who are handing out candy, hand it out so it's prepackaged, and so the parents can feel confident that the candy that they're getting is going to be safe for their kids. So just very important for everybody to keep those things in mind during this Halloween season. I know a lot of the municipalities like to try and have trick-or-treating during daylight hours, which is helpful. Some of them still do it at night, but just keep those things in mind. As always, we will have our patrols out there. Typically, we have our Explorer post come out, and they walk around in their yellow vests and help to keep people safe, watching out for suspicious people, suspicious vehicles. That's something parents should watch out for as well. And don't approach any of those strange vehicles unless it's a black Ford Expedition with the sheriff getting out of it with candy, which he has been known to do each and every year. So. But be careful with those suspicious vehicles and report them if you see one of those vehicles and it doesn't seem right. Your hair stands up on the back of your neck. Something's not right. Give us a call, regardless of where it is in the county, and we'll dispatch the appropriate police department or sheriff's deputy to get out there and investigate it for you.
And while we're on the topic of seasonal issues, hunting season underway in some regards. Shotgun deer season coming up a little bit further down the road, but there's hunters out there now, and I know you've got some trespassing reminders that you'd like to pass along to our listeners.
Trespassing and safety. Make sure that you are first and foremost safe with your whatever you're using, whether it be a gun or a bow. Make sure you're wearing the appropriate safety devices. Orange during the hunting season when it's required. Make sure that you're practicing good habits, and also don't drink and carry a firearm. If we are dispatched to a complaint or we come across you, the DNR comes across you, and you've been consuming alcohol and you're in possession of a firearm or manipulating a firearm in some way, that is a crime, and you can be arrested for that. Just like drunk driving. Impaired operation of a firearm is a crime in Wisconsin, and so we need to make sure people are not doing that. Safety is first and foremost. We don't want anybody to get hurt, get shot, or anything like that, and we always hear about those every year of some hunting accident that happens during the season around the state, and we don't want it to happen anywhere. Trespassing is also another big issue that we deal with. Opening weekend for gun is always just riddled with trespassing complaints. So what I tell people is, before you go out, know where you are. We all have cell phones, we all have computers. Look up where you're going to be going on Google Maps. Look up on the county website who owns those properties, and make sure that you have permission to be in those locations. And secondly, remember that after you shoot an animal, You can't just cross lines to go get that animal without the permission of that owner. If a deer takes off running and crosses over property lines and you don't have permission to get that animal, you need to get permission before you cross that line so that you can go get that animal and recover it. We certainly want you to do that, but you have to have permission to do that first. On the flip side, property owners, post your property as no trespassing if you don't want people there. If you post it 2 signs for every 40 acres, it really gives us good authority to issue a citation or make an arrest for trespassing. And so have those no trespassing signs posted, and certainly if you see people on your property, you can let them know, hey, you're not welcome here. If they remain, give us a call and we will come out. We will take care of that issue for you. Please don't get into confrontation. Allow us to handle the situation for you.
That animal who's shot and winds up on somebody else's property, essentially that becomes the property of that particular property owner, as I understand it.
I would say that maybe not necessarily the property, but you can't go get it. Nobody can go get it. Maybe a DNR warden could go do that, but short of that, it's their property, and nobody has the right to trespass on their land.
Mm-hmm. And certainly, you're not saying that you can't go out with your friends in a deer hunting situation and have a few beers, but it's that moment where you then pick up the firearm or crack open the beer while you're holding that firearm. That's where the actual offense takes place.
The offense is when you're actually impaired, just like when you're impaired behind a motor vehicle. So that it really isn't a law of .08, but that's a good standard because that's when you're impaired in a vehicle. If you're impaired in a vehicle, you'd be impaired to operate a firearm as well. So if you drink 1 beer and you're my size, you're probably going to be okay operating a firearm. But let's say you have 1 or 2 beers and you might be 90 pounds. That might be a different story. You might actually be impaired after drinking those, and it's just like when you're making that decision to get behind the wheel of a vehicle. You have to be capable of manipulating that firearm without that impairment. And so what we'll do is we'll actually put you through that same field sobriety test battery that we would for an impaired driver.
But there is no threshold on the books.
I don't believe there actually is a per se law. That's what they call the .08, but it's generally going to be roughly in that area. And I think if we get a blood draw and it comes back at that, that's I could be wrong on that, but I'm fairly confident there isn't an actual delineated number for that. But it's probably going to be pretty close to that .08. So if you're at a .08, .09, that's going to be good evidence for us to take to court and say, look, this is where they were at.
Yeah, use your head. I think the bottom line there.
Absolutely, be safe.
Another seasonal reminder here. Now, last month we talked about farm implements. What with the harvest coming on, you're going to see more farm implements out on the roadway. Certainly that bears repeating, but I know that you really wanted to zero in on slow-moving vehicle signs at this time of year as well, which kind of complements that conversation.
It really does. And if you recall, several years ago, we had a crash out on Highway 73 just south of Randolph, in which we had a tractor pulling a wagon. It was a gravity box, as I recall, and on the back of that it had a sticker SMV, slow moving vehicle sign, and it was very faded. It was very hard to see. It was almost blended into that back of the wagon because the wagon was very old. That SMV sign needed to be replaced. There's a lot of vehicles out there that need to have those on them. If you're in a farm implement, you're driving a tractor, you're driving even a truck pulling a wagon, you're driving a slow speed and you're an agricultural vehicle, or it's always a good idea if you're on a UTV or an ATV driving down the road. Those are good things to have them on. Anything going slower than the speed limit, it's a good idea to have them there, but the agricultural vehicles are mandated to have those SMV signs on there. And an SMV, slow moving vehicle sign, is basically an upside down yield sign. It's got orange and maybe sometimes some reflective gray on it, and those are the signs we're talking about. They need to be in good repair. On a tractor, you have to have it posted so you can be seen from the behind. If there is an implement behind that tractor, as long as you can still see that slow-moving vehicle sign sufficiently, you don't have to have one on the back of that implement. However, let's say you have a wagon, a box wagon, and you can't see the back of that tractor, you have to have it on the back of there as well. At night, you have to have lighting as well, so make sure that you've got proper lighting. It should be 2 red lights to the rear if they're equipped for lighting, and they really should be on that farm implement at night.
And as far as sharing the road with those particular vehicles, the same rules apply as they do with the farm implements, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Farm implements have a right to drive on the road, but they can't impede traffic by slow speed. That's what we talked about last month. So if you have an opportunity to get out of the way and let that other traffic get around, please do so, because it is your responsibility to do that. But drivers that are passing and coming up behind, make sure you do so safely. Don't pass in no passing zones, and just make sure that you navigate safely and coexist on the roadway and make sure everybody can get to where they need to go.
And before we get to the more serious stuff, some more seasonal reminders and updates. Now we get through the fall season, and I hate to look ahead to the winter season, but that's not too far away. And I know you're a member of the Beaver Dam Rotary.
Yes.
And last year, the Rotary, for the first time,
Yes.
had started a project over at Swan Park. And it looks like we're going to be seeing that again. Would you like to let our listeners know everything that's going to be going on with the Rotary Lights?
Sure. It actually started as our 2016-17 Leadership Beaver Dam class, best class ever. It was our project. I had an idea and I brought it to the class, and I thought we really need to beautify Swan Park. And last winter you saw the beginning of that project, beginning of hopefully many years to come. We had the lights out there, the trees were wrapped, we had several of the buildings that had lights on it, and so this year we're expanding that, and we've had some assistance. The Rotary, which I'm also a part of, and because I'm the chair of the service project committee, it's still my project. We've had several come to the plate to help us, including Ruth Metz, one of our local business owners here in town, has really come to help and really put out a great project of getting businesses to sponsor displays this year. And so I have 18 boxes so far in my shed that I'm putting displays together right now, getting ready to put them out there in the next couple of weeks. In fact, on November 3rd at 8:30 a.m., November 3rd at 8:30 a.m., we'll be out at Swan Park setting up the lights out there. And we're going to get those displays going. We're going to try and get the trees going and get those put up, get all the lights put up, and get ready to light the lights the day after Thanksgiving on Black Friday. And I forget the date of Black Friday. Actually, I believe it would be the 23rd of November would be Black Friday, and so we'll turn it on right around dusk time, 4:30, 5 o'clock, and see the lights we had last year with the addition of the new displays. I think it's going to be really neat. We're going to have a walkway behind it with some arches, some archway lights that you can walk through. We've got some special appearances this year. We have Santa's sleigh, which will be out there, along with a couple of reindeer, and which will be a permanent display. But we believe Santa has it on his agenda to come and visit us in December. Looking at hopefully the 15th of December. We're still trying to finalize that with him. And also we're trying to get some carolers, maybe on the 8th of December, to come out. And so we got 3 dates, really. The lighting, Santa, and the carolers, if we can make them all happen. They're not set in stone yet. But if we can get those to work out as planned, we'd like to have people bring out non-perishables to go to the food pantry here in town. So those would be great opportunities to help out our community, and really another family-friendly display out at Swan Park. And we're looking forward to it growing each and every year. And we thank everybody that's been so helpful. Brian and Tammy Flick from here in town have helped build some displays, and it's going to be really, really neat.
So if I recall correctly, you did have a number last year as far as the quantity of lights was concerned. Have we grown so much that we've lost track of the number of lights now for year 2?
I don't think I ever really had a number of lights.
No.
I had a dollar amount. We raised about $10,000, and Good Karma Broadcasting was a huge sponsor with just advertising last year. And I'm sure if I talk to the powers that be, Ryan will probably help us out again here this year and do some more advertising and be a big sponsor. But we so far, I think we're right around the $5,000 or $6,000 mark this year. And if anybody wants to donate, we're not really looking for additional displays this year because it'd be hard to get them in time. But if you'd like to donate and we could get a sponsorship tree or get you on a banner yet, we could certainly do those. Go to the City of Beaver Dam website, and under the Parks and Forestry page, there is a link to Beaver Dam Lights. The sponsorship's right there. You fill out the form, make out your check to the City of Beaver Dam, and stop it down at City Hall or mail it in, and certainly can donate to Beaver Dam Rotary Lights as we continue to beautify Swan Park.
So just so I make sure I have this right, you spent about $10,000 last year on lights, and then you added another $5,000 or $6,000 this year.
That's where we're at right now. Yeah, I believe we're doing very, very well, and even Rotary kicked in $2,000 to help out this year, and I don't think that's included in that 5 or 6. I got to go back and look at the number, but it's great. I know Kiwanis is a big supporter. We've got Mike Wassell downtown. I think my wife, because they share an office down there. I think she may have twisted his arm a little bit. Ruth did some of that too. We've got Beaver Dam Community Hospital and American Bank, just to name a few sponsors. And we'll get those on sponsorship signs out there at the park.
How many of the lights survived from last year? Do we know? Have you plugged them in yet?
I have not plugged them in yet, but I'm sure they're fine. Last year we only had a little bit of vandalism. One string lights was cut, and they're only 9-foot sections, so it wasn't too bad to replace. And I had the projector that projected up inside the band shell that was stolen, but I'm working on a more permanent solution because I have a replacement. So that really would have to struggle to get it this year, hopefully.
Okay. Do we know it wasn't just an accidental tree limb that cut that line?
From my investigative skills, no. I'm pretty sure it was a wire cutters.
You don't want to mess with these lights. It seems like this is probably the worst thing you could do vandalism-wise, I would think.
Yeah, don't mess with it. We got a lot of people putting time into it, and if I have to, we'll bring it down the full force of the Dodge County Sheriff's Office in doing an investigation. So,
one final thing before we wrap up this initial segment here today, your department is applying for a grant for, what is it, a new canine unit?
No, it's just funding for our canine unit, and there's a grant out there called the Aftermath Grant. And don't ask me why they call it the Aftermath Canine Grant, but that's what it's called. And our team has been nominated. I, as the executive, need to nominate the organization, which I've done. And the top 8 agencies who put in for this are awarded grants up to a total of $16,500. So we're hoping that we can get the community's support. I need everybody's help. This is just like the family center with the lighting, and we're going to be putting things out on Facebook and really pushing this. Starting tomorrow, we need people to go to the aftermath.com website, and it's under the law enforcement and the canine grant info, and this will all be on our Facebook page. And go and vote every day. You can do it twice a day, once every 12 hours, for the Dodge County Sheriff's Office Canine Unit. That vote will go from tomorrow until November 2nd, so the day before we put up Christmas lights, and then you can come donate out your time with the Christmas lights. But October 18th until November 2nd, we need everybody to go out and vote for the Dodge County Sheriff's Office so we can bring some additional funds in to support our canine unit. And I know Sergeant Nicholas and Kidd and Deputy Nails and Tech are very excited about this opportunity, and anything we can do to continue to provide the necessary needs, vehicle equipment, and other things for the canine units, training. This is a great opportunity for us to do that. And so we're going all in, and we hope we can get the community support and really make this a successful bid for this grant money.
So there are 2 dogs that are on the roster over at the Dodge County Sheriff's Office, and that I imagine hits the big parts of the day when it's really the most serious concern as far as drug trafficking and other issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only are they involved in drugs, detecting drugs, but they're tracking dogs. So we have somebody that goes missing, or we have somebody who runs from us, looking for a fugitive, that type of thing. But they're also handler protection, which means if they get themselves into a situation where somebody may be trying to assault either Sergeant Nicholas or Deputy Nails or another deputy that might be with them, they can push a button on their uniform. The dog is released, and they can come to our aid, and that partner can come in and rescue them in a dangerous situation. So there's a number of uses for these canines. There's a lot of training that goes into it, and certainly those things are not cheap. And this grant can really help us to make sure that they're good, functional dogs. We've got a couple great dogs. We really do. Sometimes you hear about dogs that aren't as productive as others. We've got 2 very, very good dogs and great handlers.
I'll be honest with you. I've interviewed a lot of police officers about canine units. I think this is the first time I've heard about pushing a button and the dog being released.
Yeah, yep. There is a release on the door. They have a manual button that they can push. Sometimes they wear it in their pocket. Sometimes it's on their belt. and it pushes the button, it will release the door mechanism, allowing that canine to leave the vehicle to come to the aid of our deputy and protect them, pull that bad guy off, whatever they're doing. And it's only used in situations where they're in need of assistance, but it's a great, valuable tool to have their partner be able to get out of the car to come help them.
And the canines, as you said, are also handler protection and also general department protection. So, I assume that's a fairly common kind of dog training thing. The dog is familiar with all of the deputies and other personnel in the department as part of that protection thing.
Yeah, and they see a uniform too. Uniforms are a presence for the dogs can pick those types of things out, and they can see who the aggressor is. I think that's the more
and that's what I'm getting
evident thing is when somebody's being aggressive. These dogs are trained to know and the direction of the handler as well. In fact, the handler. The canine is extremely protective of their handler, and sometimes even other officers and deputies need to be cautious that they don't put themselves in a position where the canine may think that they're a threat, because that handler, just like anybody else's dog and owner, they're very protective of who their handler is.
What is the cycle for the current canine units that are in the Dodge County Sheriff's Office? When are we going to have to think about adding a third or looking at new dogs?
Right now, adding a third isn't something we're looking at because we have anticipated retirements coming up in the next year or so. Just because of staff, we've been talking about this for 3-4 years. We've known these retirements have been coming, and with short staff, it's difficult to take all those people out to the training. So we may, after we get caught up on these retirements, consider a third one again, but right now we're going to stick to 2. Both of them are relatively young dogs yet, a few years old, 3-4 years old, and barring any kind of promotion for any of them past the rank of sergeant, they'll continue as the canine handlers. Should that happen, that we do promote one of them past the rank of sergeant, then we would consider reassigning to another handler. But right now, they're stable. They'll be here for quite some time.
All right. Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt, our guest here on Community Comment today. The phone number, if you've got a question, is 920-885-4446. That's 885-4446. We'll take a break and be back here in just a few minutes.
Time for more of today's Community Comment. Here again is your host, Craig Warmbold.
Well, thank you very much. And our guest is Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. The phone number, if you've got a question, is 920-885-4446. It's budget time. And the Dodge, we talked a little bit about this last month, but it's an ongoing process and things are changing all the time. The sheriff's budget is a little bit challenging this year because of the pending closure of JPOD and the loss of revenue that would come from limited bed space that is typically given out to Immigration and Customs Enforcement and also to U.S. Marshal holds. Less beds, less revenue. That has prompted a kind of a request for analysis by some county board supervisors to say, hey, how's this going to shake out? Or at least that's kind of my understanding of it. I'm not the beat reporter in Dodge County. That's Kevin Haugen. But from what I'm gleaning from him, there's what do they call it? A procedural analysis.
Operational review.
Operational review. So tell us a little bit about this operational review, what it's going to entail, and what you think is going to be the kind of the final outcome of this.
Well, first of all, to say it's kind of difficult this year with the budget would be an understatement because the amount of revenues that we lost this year. And we told the county board this during numerous meetings through several months that if we closed Pod J without any kind of replacement, there would be a significant loss in revenue that would impact our budget at the end of the year. And here we are. The sheriff's office budget increased $2.3 million. That's what's proposed at this point because we lost all of that revenue. And we've done comparisons with other sheriff's offices, and our levy is still considerably less than what other sheriff's offices that are similar in size, other jails are similar in size. We are considerably less by several millions of dollars compared to those others because we still have that revenue. But we lost a lot, and as a result, we are $2.3 million above where we were last year. And we haven't added anything. In fact, we are the leanest we've ever been. cutting staff, with the drug issue being what it is. Unfortunately, I didn't have anywhere else to cut. We had to cut a position from our drug task force. I had to unfund a patrol position. We did unfund 9 positions in the jail because we don't have that extra facility, but we can't unfund any further beyond that because it would just cause overtime. We cut significant expenditures from our replacement cycles, which is very important. Otherwise, our equipment continues to degrade, and we're operating with life-saving equipment that can't save lives. We have 3 squad cars that are on the chopping block for next year's budget that we can't replace, and by the end of next year, we're projecting them to be around 200,000 miles or more. And for an emergency vehicle operating at 200,000 miles, that's a lot of miles, and we're going to have difficulty with repairs and things like that. It's going to be very, very difficult next year, just the way the budget is built now. We're still $2.3 million above where we were last year. So it's certainly raised some red flags, but we told the county board that this would be what we would have to work with, and we're working it out. We're doing the best we can to make this work. There are a couple county board supervisors who have questions about it, and the county administrator, I'll take a couple steps back. The county board a couple of years ago indicated they wanted to have these types of reviews on all of the departments and do it in a cycle. And we did Health and Human Services several years ago, and then we switched gears. We're going to change our financial software. So they didn't want to do these reviews in the same year as switching our financial software. But now, because this all came up, the county board it wants to do a study of the financials and a staffing analysis, which is fine. They're going to find that we are doing things as we should. They're going to find that our budget is much lower in expenditures, or I shouldn't say that. The bottom line is going to be lower than other sheriff's offices just because of the revenues that we bring in. And we are very efficient with the funds that we use. And I believe when it comes back to the staffing analysis, I believe it's going to say that the jail staffing is where it needs to be. I believe it's going to come back and say patrol is short, communications is short, and detectives are short. That's where I think it's going to be. We'll do the study. We'll have the analysis done. It's going to take a while. The analysis that they're looking at doing is still going to be very extensive. We pared it down a little bit from where it originally was, but it's still going to be very expensive, very extensive. And we're hoping in sometime August we get that back. And if it does identify some issues where we can improve, fantastic. I'm all for that. I'm always looking for areas where we can improve. But at the end of the day, I really believe it's going to say that for the most part, we're doing things exactly as we should be doing them. We're spending the county taxpayers' money wisely, and we are going to need additional staffing. I firmly believe that's where we're going to be, based on our own internal studies that we have done. And I think it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to have these reviews and be transparent. We have nothing to hide at the sheriff's office, and we'll see exactly where it all shakes out next summertime in time for the 2020 budget. So certainly nothing here that anybody is accusing anybody of doing. It's just an operational review because we have a significant change in the closure of a building that cuts 108 beds out of our facility.
You said that the review was pared down. There are parameters that are set up presumably then for something like this?
Yeah, the initial one that was presented to the executive committee yesterday, as a matter of fact, was much more extensive and really got into areas that have already been reviewed. If we were to do something like that, the cost of it would likely be somewhere in the 6 figures. Rather than $30,000, $40,000, which is where I'm hoping this shakes out, no more than that. And really, you got to weigh the cost of benefit. Spending $100,000 on a review that really isn't going to have a whole lot of benefit doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And if we're going to spend that kind of money, we should be spending it on squad cars, and making sure that we can keep our people safe, and making sure that we can respond to incidents quickly and efficiently. I think a study of the finances and a study of our staffing is exactly what they're looking for. And I think the committee came to that consensus yesterday, and it should be a good review. So we'll see what comes back.
So Is this something that, first of all, does this come out of your budget, this 3040, or does this come from a general fund from the county level?
We currently have $30,000 set aside in my budget to pay for it for next year. If it goes above and beyond that, that would have to be allocated by the county board, and they'd have to come up with the funds of where that would have to come from. I honestly don't know where that would come from at this point.
Is this analysis something that should have been done before the vote was taken to close J-Pod?
We did a very extensive analysis. Our finance director did a very extensive analysis of the jail and submitted it. We gave a presentation. We had our own analysis separate of hers, and we presented it. We gave the county board the option of before closing it, asking them if they wanted to do an audit, and there didn't seem to be any interest there at that time. So we gave information to them. There were comments made on the county board floor that some, I'm not saying all, there's a small handful of people didn't really believe the numbers at that point, and we don't really understand why, nor did we ever receive any input as to why they felt that way. But here we are. The building has been closed, and the county board made a decision, and we talked about this extensively. Are we going to spend the $13 million up to $26 million, depending on the size of the building, to keep our revenues long term and continue the operations, or are we going to cut our budget? And we conservatively estimated 1.2, but we told everybody that it could be well in excess of that, 2, 3, even $4 million, and it turns out it was a higher number than what we had initially thought it would be.
Because it is, what is it again? It's
2.3 after we cut significant cuts. We were right around the 2.7 to $3 million mark when we started.
Okay, and that's again from the loss of revenue from those beds that are generated through ICE and through U.S. Marshal holds.
Yeah, and there has been no increase. I just want to clarify, there no increase whatsoever in our spending outside of normal wage increases, which is out of my control. There are 3 positions that were approved in August by the county board that we weren't able to fund, and those weren't even ever considered because we were so far behind. That was a detective, a school resource officer for out in the county, and a full-time traffic crash investigator, and none of those were able to be funded on top of the other cuts we had to make.
All right, so, and again, this isn't my beat necessarily, so I don't have the same insight. But what is driving this need for an analysis now? As far as you see it, is it because you think some county board members were caught off guard by this budget number?
I don't know that anybody could have been caught off guard because we gave this so many times. We gave this information, and I think this is being done really to put this issue to rest. But at the same time, it is something that the county has wanted to do long term anyway.
Right.
So it was a kind of a twofold. We're going to do this anyway. This puts the issue to rest. It answers questions that supervisors may have, and hopefully those supervisors that still have questions will be able to move past this.
Is it ever too late to reverse course if the county board did want to wind up spending the with 13 to 26 million to build a new pod to house these inmates? It's not a done deal necessarily. It is this time, but
well, they could at any county board meeting say we are going to keep J-Pod open. They could do that, and we could make those adjustments for next year, and we could continue evaluating into the future to build a new building. That's certainly something they could do. Will they? I doubt that. Will they come back and add later? I think it would be more difficult to come back later and say we're going to add a pod or two, because now we've told the federal government we're cutting back, and then coming back later and saying, yeah, we want them back again. Are the feds going to be leery about filling us up, and are we going to be able to get those back quickly? And I'd be nervous about that. When we had them, okay, we've got them, and we're confident that we can keep them. But if we send them away and then beg to get them back, it might not be so simple.
Now, I've covered other beats in other states where they've built jails specifically to house immigration inmates, U.S. Marshal inmates, and that's a whole other story. But I remember this was 20, maybe 15 years ago. At that time, they were worried about, well, what if this whole immigration revenue source dries up? What if rather than detaining them for X amount of times, we just decide to deport them outright? This is 15 years ago they were talking about this, and now we're in a political climate where something like that may be possible. Do you foresee this revenue source specifically from immigration being something that that might be worthwhile as far as investing $13 to $26 million in.
I don't see it drying up. I really don't. From everything that I hear from immigration, when they're begging for places to put people, I mean, they are begging. They're calling and say, "We need beds. How many can you help us with?" It's constant that they're doing that. I just don't see that happening unless there's a big shift. But even then, we had 8 years under President Obama, and we had 1 year that we had kind of a down year, and that really there was a kind of a third party interacting there that caused that. We had 1 year that was a down year in 15 some years. We've had a great success over many years, saving a lot of money for the taxpayers of Dodge County, and we have a lot of history there. I don't think that it would go away. If it would, there are other options out there. As one of our county board supervisors said, Tom Nickel, we used to be a warden in the prison. Our prisons are not getting smaller. They're not getting less crowded. The state is always begging for people to come in and use county jails, just that their reimbursement rate is lower. There is always somebody to fill those spots in our jail, and so I don't see it drying up.
Excuse me, Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt, our guest here. The phone number, if you've got a question, is 920-885-4446. We'll take a break and be back in just a minute.
Time for more of today's community comment. Here again is your host, Craig Warmbold.
And our guest is Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt. The phone number, if you've got a question, is 920-885-4446. At the most recent meeting of the Beaver Dam Police and Fire Commission, Beaver Dam Police Chief John Kreitzinger gave an update on everything that's going on with Spillman and seemed to mirror what the conversation we had last month with yourself and I about your efforts to get your IT department over to Beaver Dam to address some of the issues with Spillman, the countywide records management system that connects 18 local law enforcement agencies together. Beaver Dam having had issues with connectivity and some problems that they needed addressing. It kind of blew up again as an issue throughout the course of this year after Spillman was officially launched in December. And again, the police chief seemed to mirror what you had told me last month, which was that there's been a positive effort to have both agencies work together to try to find a solution. Didn't get the idea that the solution was found, but there seemed to be this proactive plan in place to try to find the solution. Where are we at now?
Well, and just to backtrack a little further, I've wanted to have this cooperation since June, and we are there now. Thankfully, after the election was all over, we were able to get the business, and we were finally able to have the meeting I was asking for since June. And we've made some progress now. Our IT department has come over, has worked with them, and has identified a problem. And the problem was not an external, was not a county issue, but as it turned out, we're still testing it to make sure that this was how extensive this was. But within the police department, they had some slow bandwidth. And IT was able to identify that. The chief was happy to take action to correct that bandwidth issue, bandwidth being the speed of which the internet is coming into the facility, and it was extremely slow. And that was certainly the problem within the police department. We're still testing that to make sure. And we're in talking to our IT people, they're telling me that they think it likely has some connection or some issue with connectivity into the car. We're not sure yet. We're still testing that. And what we're doing now is we are giving them one of our MDCs, mobile data computers, along with one of our hotspots from the county so that they can test it to see, is there an issue with what they have compared to what we have, so that we can isolate the problem. And so I think we're making some good progress. And it's amazing what can happen when we get to the table and can hash through these problems. And so I see some very positive things there. Once we get those connection issues done, then certainly there are some feature issues that we're still working on. We've been waiting for an update to come from Spillman, and they haven't pushed it out this month yet because they want to make sure that it's right before they push it out. They don't want to cause additional problems. As you recall, that's what we had with New World quite a bit, was they pushed something out, we had a lot of problems. They identified a couple issues, they want to correct them before we push it out to everybody. But that is going to correct some of the issues they had as well. And some of those issues were some of the code tables weren't lining up right. So eye color, hair color wasn't coming across perfectly, so they'd have to go to a drop down and fix those, and it slowed them down a little bit in those processes. And there's a number of other little things that it's not really big things, but there's a bunch of little things that slow them down. And so we're correcting those items. We're finding ways to work through these issues, and I think we're moving in the right direction. One of my secretaries is putting together what we call WebEx videos, in which she has the computer in front of her and the program up, and she records what's on her screen and the voice describing this is how you go through the processes. And in fact, I actually did one that was very advantageous for me. I don't make a whole lot of arrests out in the road and bring them to jail, but from time to time I do. She did a video on how we need to process people in the system before bringing them to the jail. And if you do it right, it shouldn't take very long in the car. And when you get to the jail, you should only be there a couple minutes and you're done and out. So I made an arrest on Friday. I followed the instructions that she gave us in that WebEx. It was very quick. I was in and out of the jail faster than I've ever been before, even back in the day when I was doing it quite a bit more frequently. And it worked really well. It's just knowing the system, knowing the features of it, and really being efficient with it. And so certainly we all have, it's only 9 months old. That we've had it. We have some things we need to continue working on, continue to get better at. We're constantly working on training, and these WebEx videos are the best way that we can do that. And what's really good is we can build a library then for all our new hires, and then they can watch these videos whenever they want to, going through the training process or even afterwards. How do I do that again? Watch the video. Oh yeah, there it is. And so we're really building a great database, and we're really moving in a good direction. And I think certainly there are some frustrations, and we will get through those. We're going to continue to have meetings with the chief. Our Spillman build committee is continuing to meet with Beaver Dam, and we'll keep working on the communication effort, and we'll get through this, and before too long, everybody will be operating as efficiently, if not better, than they had been in the past.
One of the minor issues, and this does seem like a minor issue, but one that I get the idea has caused a lot of frustration when we talk about some of the small things with hair and eye colors. As I understand it, there's no option for saying a suspect has blonde hair. There's only a strawberry blonde option, and the frustration seems to be like, well, I guess nobody has blonde hair in Wisconsin. Is that accurate? Is that something that's being addressed?
It's and that's what the system will be. Everybody that's blonde is going to be considered strawberry blonde until we can get this coding issue fixed. And it is a minor issue. So now we look at it, strawberry blonde. Okay, yeah, it's not red. It's blonde, but. It's one of those things that it's a coding issue, and it should have been corrected a while ago, but we believe that's coming out in this update that we're waiting to get. And once that update is processed through, we believe that's going to be taken care of. It's just a small minor issue that's more of a nuisance than much else, and it would be great that it just populates, and it still does. For people that don't understand how this works, I'll walk you through it. When we run a plate through the state of Wisconsin Criminal Information Bureau, it sends us back the driver's license record. What we do is we import that information. So it imports the name, the date of birth, the address, not a phone number because that's not in there, but their driver's license number, the expiration year. It imports all of that information into Spillman and pre-populates it. Then we just need to go through and clarify to make sure that it's all right. So there's no more handwriting any of that information in there. Makes it very accurate because you're not transposing numbers. And so we've got a couple drop downs that we need to look through and correct. And they're highlighted in red, so you don't have to search for them. It's really easy to go to them and highlight them. You fix the ones that are wrong, and then you hit accept. Really, most of the time when we're doing those, that import really shouldn't take a whole lot longer than 15, 20 seconds to do. And that's a lot of information that we're importing. And we certainly can make that a little bit more efficient. We're living in a time where technology needs to work and everything needs to be perfect. Where 10, 15 years ago, we would have been handwriting all that information out, and it would have taken us a lot longer than 15, 20 seconds to put that information on a cover sheet to give to our secretary for them to type it in. So you certainly have to take a step back and put things in perspective. We want it to work. We want it to be more efficient, but at the same time, it's still pretty quick to get that information done.
When as the news reporter here, I've got to ask myself: is this a is this a newsworthy topic to even talk about? This came up because it was an election issue. And then the only reason that we kind of continue to cover it is because it had been in an election issue, so it had been something that we had reported on in the past. I guess my question is, this is all just some internal computer software stuff with the Sheriff's Department. Is there a public safety component to this that should concern the public?
I don't believe so. There's been conversation about sitting out on the road doing a lot of data entry. You don't have to do it on the road. And we've had some of those conversations, and all of this information can be saved into a folder and be done later at the police department if that's something that wants to be done. That's something that I do frequently when I'm out on the road handling calls. I don't necessarily import it right away. I save it, it goes into a folder, I go back to my case later, and I enter that all in later. It does not have to be done on the road. All you need to do is click a button to save it and maybe enter in a disposition of what happened. You don't have to do much more of that on the street, and we're not asking anybody to do that. You can go down the road and do it 10, 15 minutes later, parked in a parking lot if you want to. So there's a lot of different options, a lot of different ways you can do this, and so you just have to be open to finding the right procedure that's right for you, that you feel comfortable with, and not necessarily on a traffic stop. There's some things on traffic stops that I think have been hammered out, where information was entered twice that didn't need to be entered twice, because everything that's put onto a citation automatically gets dumped into the system anyway. So I think there were some people that were not only putting in the citation, but they were putting it in the system as well, and they're doing double work, and they didn't need to be doing that. So there's some things that we just need to clean up, and I don't think there's a safety concern here at all. Been using the system myself. I go out there and I do it every day when I'm able to, just so I can make sure that, yeah, this is working. And it just comes down to a willingness to adapt to the system and adapt your procedures to make sure that they work right and you can keep yourself safe.
Here in the final minutes of the program, and a reminder to our listeners, if you want to get a question or a comment in here before we let the sheriff go, 920-885-4446. I want to end talking about your latest sheriff's column, which is about safety at crash scenes. What's the message you want to get out?
Remember that when we are directing traffic, when we have squads that are out there, to be careful. When we're standing out there, don't put your signal light on and decide you're going to go contrary to what our direction is. We recently had a crash outside of Juneau. Box truck laying in the middle of the highway, covering both lanes of traffic. We got a heavy wrecker on one side, a flatbed on the other side. My squad sitting in the middle of the intersection. One of our sergeant's squads on the other side of that intersection. There's no way you're getting through, and we still have people coming up with a directional on saying, "Can I get through?" And we know that that's going to happen every single time. And it's very frustrating because it stops that flow of traffic. It stops those people that are trying to get around that crash scene. Follow that direction. We know the best route. We know you can't go that direction. And pay attention. Something that a lot of people don't do, because we're all rubberneckers. We all want to know what's going on. We're always looking at the crash scene. When you come upon one, look for that guy in the yellow vest or in the uniform directing traffic, and pay attention to what they're doing and watch them, not the scene. Because we could be directing you through, telling you where to go, and you might be looking at the scene, completely miss that direction. And all of a sudden a secondary crash could occur because of that. So just slow down, pay attention to what we are asking you to do, and don't ask us to go contrary to what we're trying to send you, because it just creates havoc in the entire situation. And it's all about keeping everybody safe out there. And you really should, anytime somebody's walking or out on the side of the road, somebody should be slowing down anyway. No different when you're at a crash scene. So just be real careful out there, and we can all be safe, get those cleaned up as quick as possible, and get you on your way.
All right. Well, it looks like somebody wanted to take advantage of our last call for questions from the sheriff. The phone number again, 920-885-4446. And we'll go to the phone lines and say, good afternoon. Welcome to Community Comment.
Thank you. One more time, can we have that website for the dog?
The canine.
The canine, yes.
Sure. It's going to start tomorrow. It'll be on our Facebook page. It's aftermath.com. And then there's going to be a law enforcement link and a canine grant information link. And we will have that on our Facebook page. We'll probably throw it up on our website here today as well, or tomorrow as well, and get that available to you. We'll have the full link there, but it's aftermath.com /law enforcement. And there's a bunch of dashes in there. So we'll put it on our Facebook page.
Are you going to vote twice? I hope so. Thank you very
Yes.
much for that call. And for those that are listening to us back in podcast form or maybe watching the video back at a later date, tomorrow is October 18th when we refer to this. So this begins on October 18th and it runs through, what's the date again?
November 2nd, and you can vote twice a day. Every 12 hours you can vote. So make sure you do that for us and help us out. Really appreciate it.
All right, very good. The Rotary Lights again are, you're going to be looking for help on what date?
November 3rd at 8:30 a.m. out at Swan Park. Just come out and let us know. If you want to let me know ahead of time you're coming, that's great. If you can bring a group of people, group of volunteers, make it a family day. Great. Tell your church to come out and help. You don't have to donate money. You can come donate your time as well. We greatly appreciate that.
All right, once again, those kids are going to be out there getting that Halloween candy here on the weekend before Halloween. A lot of the trick-or-treating hours are, maybe even on Halloween night in some areas, in some cases. Your final message to those motorists.
Be safe, slow down out there, watch out for the kids, and parents, check that candy. And on one other note, real quick here, this afternoon at 5 o'clock during the Brewer game, unfortunately, but we will be, our Rotary Club's going to be out cleaning up Highway E between Highway A and the city of Beaver Dam. So slow down for us out there, and if you want to honk and wave and say hi, certainly can do that, but slow down for us while we're out there walking the roads, and great opportunity, but hopefully we can get that done quick and go watch the Brewers win.
And for those that are going to be celebrating and watching the Brewers, drive safe, designated driver.
Absolutely.
If you're going to be drinking.
Absolutely. Be careful out there. Enjoy it. Use a designated driver if you need to. Safe Ride Ron's always available for a phone call. Just don't ask to stay at his house. He's probably not going to allow that. So.
All right. Well, Sheriff, we want to thank you for joining us today.
Always a pleasure.
Once again, Dodge County Sheriff Dale Schmidt here, our guest on Community Comment. That is going to do it for today's program.